Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews. I've got The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I am indeed in my fiction era. It only took 12, 14 years reading books to get there. The Hobbit probably needs no introduction if you've ever written any particular fiction books. I had not. I've obviously watched the movies, the trilogy, and The Hobbit before I ever read any of the books. So I kind of understood what the story was going to be. For a large amount of individuals, I would imagine that you yourself would probably know about the book. I've got some interesting facts about it as well, just because I wanted to like pull up some of the little notes that I had in here. And I believe, if I can get out my actual notes, that this particular book is one of the, it's not going to say the only book, but it is a book that has been in continuous circulation since 1937. Correct. It remains continuously available, so obviously testament to the enduring power of this bloody book. The other thing as well, some little tidbits that I also found interesting, because a lot of people probably know about the book. I'm not going to give away too many spoilers. But Bilbo, early draft called him Bingo, and that would have been an interesting name to go as well. Also, I'm not going to talk too much about J.R.R. Tolkien himself. I feel like the amount of information out on the web or through AI or whatever you want to use to get the information from him, you're going to get a truckload. So just go search the name. If you don't know about him, go find it out. But this particular book was never intended to actually be published. The Hobbit was never intended to be published. It began as a story that he tells to his children, and I'm currently reading The Lord of the Rings, and we see the difference between a book that was written not to be published and for his kids, a story, versus one that then became much more of something to publish and the detail and the lore that came behind it. But also, it was actually written during some of its marking. So Tolkien was reportedly started to write The Hobbit while he was grading some exam papers. He himself was someone was a teacher, and he scribbled in a hole in the ground that lived the Hobbit on a blank exam page, as the lore of the story goes. So a little bit of tidbits around this particular book. It is very, very short in length. In fact, this particular version that I've got is 300 odd pages, but it actually has the first chapter from The Lord of the Rings. So it's probably just shy of 300 pages. You can get through this in 5 hours very, very easily. It's a fiction book. It pretty much set up that type of fiction, lore, mythical type of books that then came out afterwards. If for people who are big readers, right, this is not The Hobbit specifically is not as deep lore as Game of Thrones, as the rest of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and a whole host of other books that have kind of come after this one. But this was the first one that really turned that idea or this particular theme of fiction into reality. Probably for a lot of authors out there have said, whether it's J.R.R. Tolkien or others around that era, that kind of they got inspired by them. And it was quite interesting that, again, story was never something that was supposed to be published. It was something to be for someone's kids, and then all of a sudden became something massive, or at least began the journey for a rest of the series. So The Hobbit, look, I'll read the back of it. It probably explains it pretty well if you don't know the story. Bilbo Baggins, he's a hobbit who enjoys comfortable, unambitious life, rarely traveling further than the pantry of his hobbit hole in Bag End. But his contentment is disturbed when the wizard Gandalf and a company of 13 dwarfs arrive on the doorsteps one day to whisk him away on a journey there and back again. They have a plot to raid the treasure hoard of Smaug the Magnificent, the dragon, a large and very dangerous dragon. There you go. It's a prelude to The Lord of the Rings, and really, the story is really told in that way, but then obviously dissected and goes into a lot of details. In this one, it's there and back again, and very much indeed, it is all about Bilbo being there at Bag End, being a hidden leader, someone that you wouldn't expect to be the hero of this particular book, but he goes there, and there is the Smaug, the dragon under the mountain, and you find out about all this lore, goes all the way there, and returns. And the book, unlike a lot of books perhaps of today's age, isn't gritty in detail. And for that, I think it holds this level of beauty. It's just enough of the surface and the information that you want, with a little bit of the J.R.R. Tolkien style of putting out this, a war happened here and the armies of this and the extent of this area. Doesn't go into detail, but just enough to keep you interested by building up the world around it, but keeping you quite straight in line with the story. And the story is like all classic heroes' journeys, right? It's In this case, he is a hobbit who goes from essentially being someone that you don't know, who sounds shy, who doesn't seem like they'd be the hero, to going and meeting some elves and going down to the darkness to find the ring. And obviously, that then goes into further stories into the future. Gollum, he does, goes into the dark forest and what happens around there. And all of these situations, including meeting the ogres at the beginning, kind of showcases a little bit more of, oh, that's why he's a little bit better than these tried and tested, battle hardened dwarves or this particular wizard. And then try it again and again and again. It builds up this courage within the hobbit or the individual, and it's again classic hero's journey of goes away, um, gains all these skills and wisdoms and courage and comes back home and then is revered. And then as the story goes into the Lord of the Rings, or going to more obviously there, it kind of like resets again and off the circle goes. So classic in that particular way. Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey. Yeah, classic. I hate that book, but it's basically what this book does. And what the book's doing, it's fantastic. Dissecting that and the analysis of it, I hate it, so I enjoy it. And of course, in The Hobbit, they go all the way to the fountain. They do something with the dragon. I won't say too much. There's lots of loot that comes out of it and the actions that he takes. All fantastic. So, story, awesome. And in fact, you've got probably very few people who are going to say that they didn't enjoy this sort of book. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Freaking loved it. I read it as fast as I possibly could. I, in fact, took this as a book that I was going to take to Europe for my reading. And I finished it, unfortunately, 2 days into my 1+ month trip. So that book's sake, I finished it way too fast. The Hobbit, like, you're gonna enjoy reading it if you like fiction. If you haven't read this book and you like fiction, man, just stop, go get it, read it in the next couple of weeks and months. You'll love it. Fantastic. You'll come back and be like, yes, I needed it. For the people who are like diehard J.R. Tolkien or love the Lord of the Rings lore, you know about it. You know way more than I do. I'm not going to tell you much more about it from a review perspective. From just in detail, I'm not going to pick out anything else in particular of the book and the way it's structured. It's chapters, it's stories, it's journey after event after event after event that builds up Bilbo and the rest of the tribe to something occurring, and all the occurrences are a little bit bigger, a little bit greater, a little bit more amazing. And that's always a good story. You always want to keep on reading. But there was two pieces that I picked out, and I'm not going to do a learnings for this particular book. Normally with fiction, I don't do that. But I did highlight 2 pieces which kind of showed me one, like just something really interesting as a concept that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote down, and then another one just around his writer. So this particular one, which was in a short rest chapter, it was my little note was, the bad brings stories and the good is generally forgotten. Now, he talks about it in this way. Now, it is a strange thing, but things that are good to have and days that are good to spend are soon told about and not much to listen to, while things that are uncomfortable, palpitating, and even gruesome may make a good tale and take a deal of telling anyway. They stayed long in that good house, 14 days at least in this one there with the elves, and they found it hard to leave. Bilbo would gladly have stopped there forever and ever, even supposing a wish would have taken him right back to his hobbit hole without trouble. Yet there is a little to tell about their stay. And again, this was just describing a particular point where they were on a good stay with the elves, eating plenty, and there is little to tell about the stay. Isn't it strange that it's the bad things, the uncomfortable, the palpitating, and the gruesome that make the most fantastic stories? And that is a powerful and a very beautiful thing about life as well. You can have other good times, enjoy them. I had a great time when I was in Europe, but it was such a great time so often. Sometimes you just kind of forget they blend. But I do recall all of the little nuances, the difficulties, the troubles, and that in amongst the good stuff is what makes the story, and what you remember really vividly as well, intermingled with great stuff. The other one I wanted to call out was just, again, the type of writing. So I love this sort of writing. I think when it goes into Lord of the Rings, there's a bit more complexity and detail and depth that come from those sort of books. I don't necessarily like it as much. I like this more raw, simpler sort of stories. It reminds me of Liberty Prince, The Little Prince from Rupert Supiti, I think it is, and or like the Alchemist. Those are books. Just you pick it up, short reads. The story's powerful. It has enough going with it that you understand it. But here's a line in the Overhill and Underhill. Said there's such a vibe writing, a capture of emotion. The nights were comfortless and chill, and they did not dare to sing or talk too loud. for the echoes were uncanny and the silence seemed to dislike being broken, except by the noise of water and the wail of wind and the crack of stone. Books do this all the time. Writers do this very well. When I was really young, the way I like to write was in this sort of descriptive way, just by nature. Obviously, not this creative a way, but this is again and again and again in the writing, and it's simple enough but descriptive enough where you go, it's so easy to put yourself in the position as you're reading this. It's so easy to be Bilbo going through the story and makes you very immersed without having the baggage of heavy lore, heavy runes, heavy understandings. The Hobbit for me was, yeah, 9 out of 10. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's freaking good. I think you'll solo it up as much as I did. If you didn't enjoy it, shit, leave a comment, send me a message. Why and how could you possibly not have liked it? I honestly can't fault it too much. It does start maybe a little bit slow, but once you get past a few pages into the action, man, it just gets on, and on. So, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I loved it. Mere Mortals. I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're well, wherever you are in the world. And wherever, if you are in a misty mountain, I hope it isn't too cold. One, hat.